Madam President, on October 11th, we marked the 5th anniversary of Congress's capitulation to the resolution authorizing the war in Iraq, and I believe we should take this opportunity to tally up what this war has cost our nation. We're all very aware of the human costs. More Americans have died in Iraq than died on September 11th. These are our friends and neighbors, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, gone forever. 28,000 men and women have come back home wounded, some with their legs or arms blown off by bombs, some blind from shrapnel in their eyes, some thrown into a state of mental shock from which they will never fully recover. As for the Iraqi men, women, and children who have died in this conflict, we cannot even say. Some estimates say the body count is more than 100,000. And as for the people who have been forced to abandon their homes, there are about to number 4.5 million, a disproportionate number of them being children. We all know that the Iraq War is a human calamity of vast proportions. It can be harder to visualize the direct damage that comes from the financial cost of the war, to see it as a cancer that it is, making our debt metastasize, threatening our budget, eating away at the financial stability of our entire nation. We're paying for this war with borrowed money, racking up massive debt, severely threatening the future of our country. We know that our country has spent more than $450 billion on this war so far. We continue to spend about $10 billion every month. That doesn't just add up to a stack of bills that could have sat in the Treasury. It's equipment at ports that can scan for nuclear weapons and other measures that actually make the homeland more secure. It's children healed with better health care. It's more teachers in schools, better training for our jobs, energy that's clean and doesn't strengthen repressive regimes in the Middle East, payment of our debts so future generations will inherit a country that is financially viable. Those are casualties we cannot fail to count. When our money gets burned in Iraq, we deserve to know what we're trading away. What we're trading away cannot be summed up in one speech, however. So I'll be coming back to this subject as many times as necessary to give each sacrifice fair attention. When we add it all up, the bottom line is very clear. If we had never gone into Iraq, our lives would be better. And the sooner we get out of Iraq, the better our lives will be. And I'll repeat this until our troops have come home. If we had never gone into Iraq, our lives would be better. And the sooner we transition out of Iraq, the better our lives will be. Madam President, today I want to speak about what the failed war in Iraq has cost us in terms of our security here at home. The Bush administration likes to parrot the line that, quote, "We're fighting them over there, so we don't have to fight them here." Never mind that the war has created more terrorists than there were before. Beyond that, it has directed funding away from programs that actually would prevent terrorists from attacking the homeland. The administration's budget for the failed war in Iraq is 13 times this year's budget for Homeland Security. 13 times this year's budget for Homeland Security. Do we really think that the Iraq War is 13 times more important to America than the Department of Homeland Security's mission? When it comes to our money, the administration's motto really is, we're spending it over there so we don't have to spend it here. Every time we ride the subway or the bus, we put ourselves at risk because our public transportation systems are unnecessarily vulnerable to terrorist attacks. The American Public Transportation Association estimates that it will cost $6 billion to make them substantially more secure. That includes funding for personnel, training, communication systems, cameras, detection systems. Well, we spend that much, that's $6 billion that the Public Transportation Association says would make us safer. We spend that much in Iraq every 18 days. Every 18 days. That's what the war costs. Security on public transportation versus 18 days in Iraq. What's our choices? Money being spent in Iraq could have substantially improved security at our nation's ports, where 95% of the cargo slips into the country without any inspection whatsoever. For the cost of 3 days of operations in Iraq, we could fund a year's worth of strong port security initiatives throughout our country, purchasing radiation detectors, giving individual grants tailored to the specific needs of each port, and drastically increasing the number of container screens. Here's an example. There's something called a container security device. It attaches to the hinges of a container and lets inspectors at ports know if the container has been tampered with from the port that it came from. They cost about $25 each. You could provide a device for every one of the 11 million plus containers that enter our ports every year for the same money it costs us to be in Iraq for one single day. We could take 11 million containers that enter our ports every year and for one single day in Iraq make our country more secure. That's what the war costs. Electronic security for every container entering the United States versus 1 day in Iraq. And as we consider as we had considered the Commerce, Justice, and Science Appropriation Bill that we passed yesterday, it's as good a time as any to discuss how funding for the Iraq War impacts local police departments here at home. With the billions of dollars going towards a failed effort to secure the streets of Baghdad, we could boost our efforts to fight terror and violence of gangs on the streets of the neighborhoods we call home. The FBI tells us that the crime rates are going up in the United States. There's no coincidence considering the Bush administration has repeatedly cut funding for hiring new police, law enforcement technology, and successful prevention programs. Now, luckily this Senate, under Democratic leadership, has changed that course. We're taking action to reverse that situation. I was proud to co-sponsor Senator Biden's amendment, which was adopted, to boost funding for the COPS program, one of the most successful federal crime prevention programs in history. 8 hours of Iraq funding. 8 hours of Iraq funding pays for that amendment to put community police officers on the streets of our nation. 8 hours of Iraq funding. That's the war cost. More police on the streets versus 8 hours of spending in Iraq. When it comes to our money, the message the administration is sending us is clear. We're spending it over there, so we don't spend it here. But in terms of security, if we had never gone into Iraq, our lives would be better. And the sooner we transition out of Iraq, the better our lives will be. The costs of the war for the United States are going only to escalate as Great Britain withdraws its troops. So the financial question we have to answer as a nation is as urgent as any we have ever faced. We have to decide what we value as a nation, the war or keeping our country safe. These are the questions we're going to continue to ask to put a real sense of what is costing us here at home in real terms. Today was about security. We'll come back to the Senate floor and talk about education and health care and economic expansion and reducing debt, because we've got to put a real sense for the American people of what this war is costing us here at home. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.